morning. Can everybody hear me all right? Thank you. Thank you. We'll have a presentation, a number of PowerPoint slides regarding this permit application, a review of the Springs Hill Special Utility District. And I've been assisting Aaron in the district in the review of this permit application. As an overview, this permit application is for one well with a requested volume of 1,000 acre-feet per year with a maximum production rate of 1,600 gallons per minute. The aquifer to be screened is the Carrizo aquifer, the most prolific aquifer within the district. And the estimated depth to be screened is from 700 to 900 feet. That is at the base of the Carrizo aquifer at this location. The well, as probably most of us are familiar, is located in the very northeast part of Wilson County, and it would provide water to the Springs Hill SUD CCN in Guadalupe and Wilson counties. Now, Springs Hill SUD has about, with the information I had, around 11,800 customers. They serve about 35,000 people within their service area, and their usage was about 2.86 million gallons per day in 2023. That equates to about 3,000 acre feet per year of customer usage. Now, there's also water that's pumped. They have some system losses. But to get the reference to the location of this well, here, it's in the very northeast part of the county, Wilson County, Guadalupe County. Here is their service area. It extends into eastern Guadalupe County, south a little bit of the north part of Wilson County, up north of Seguin toward New Braunfels. So it's an area of growth in the region, and they're having an increase in their customer base. Then for this review, the topics we want to cover are the production permit application, the transport permit application, the hydrogeological report. That's something I'm more familiar with on an everyday basis, but I'm familiar with the others. And then also the estimates of the groundwater pumping effects on the aquifer. And those are the four topics part of it. Now, for their production permit application, it's a rather lengthy document, but it includes a water lease agreement they have on 500 acres in the very northeast part of Wilson County, and with a requested amount of 1,000 acre feet per year. That equates to 2 acre feet per acre, which is part of the rules of the Evergreen Underground Water Conservation District. Now, they also submitted a water conservation plan, including their goals for 5 years and 10 years. Those goals at 5 years were to reduce their system losses to 20%, and by 10 years to reduce them to 15% of the water produced. They have a leak detection program that is described, an implementation and enforcement is described, and also being within Region L, that's the state water planning group, this plan would go to them. Now, they also have a drought management plan, provides a response to various levels of water supply curtailment or system issues, and there's 6 progressive steps. The first step when it comes to drought management would be a 5% reduction in overall usage. When you get to the 5th level, which is a kind of extreme drought condition, their objective would be a 30% decrease in overall system usage. The 6th step is also 30% with additional water conservation or measures being taken to address the drought. I hope we never get there for anybody. Information regarding the proposed well and the turbine pump is provided. This would be a gravel pack under-reamed well, and it would be equipped with a vertical turbine line shaft pump with an above ground electric motor. pretty standard for production wells in this area, unless they're powered by an internal combustion engine. And sometimes there's submersible pumps used. And the applicant agrees to comply with the district's well plugging guidelines should those become necessary for the well or in a successive well. Okay, then also the applicant provided well and pumping equipment specifications. Those were reviewed. You know, they appear to be adequate for obtaining the TCEQ approval for construction, and I believe they have obtained that approval. It's a standard process for public supply wells that are being considered for construction. Then there's the transport permit application, which is another piece that is required, and the applicant submitted information regarding the lack of availability of surface water or groundwater within the Guadalupe County area. And there was this well site available in Wilson County. There was property with water rights available in Wilson County, and they are proposing to exercise that. And the Springs Hill currently gets water from various groundwater and surface water sources. Surface water source is the Guadalupe Blanco River Authority. Groundwater, there's some local in Guadalupe County, and then there's also imported groundwater from outside Guadalupe County, from Gonzales County. They had a hydrogeological report. It was submitted to address the pumping effects, and this is artesian head decline that would occur in the aquifer, also subsidence risk, and also address the groundwater storage reduction or depletion. And I want to emphasize this is artesian head decline because where they're proposing this well, the static water level is about 150 feet below land surface, and they're going to screen sands down at a depth of 700 to 900 feet. Also, the top of the Carrizo Aquifer in this area is at about 400, 450 feet. So there's a substantial amount of artesian head above the top of the aquifer. And that's why I want to say artesian head decline. It's not dewatering the aquifer locally. Okay, Region L has the plan for 2026. It includes a production well for Springs Hill in their management strategy to meet future water demands or future needs in their service area. And then they did provide a description of the new facilities with anticipated construction in 2026 and 2027 as their timeline for what they would like to do. Okay, so here we have a depiction of, here's the area, the property, the wells in the very southeast corner. We have radius going out 1 mile, 2 miles, 4 miles. Here's their planned pipeline that would go up and then come to a county road, follow the Farm to Market Road up toward what they call their Mesa wells. They have a pump station there. They have some water treatment there. And they're calling this the Blumberg-Edwards well transmission line. So that's where we are geographically, and the well, like I say, would be in the very southeast corner of that property block there. Now, also, we can look here, the property claimed is this 500 acres right here, the well there. You can see there, here and here are public supply wells located. This is the county boundary right here, Guadalupe County, Wilson County, Gonzales County. And so there are some existing public supply production wells here and also up here owned by Schertz-Seguin Local Government Corporation. But that's the area, and that's the location where this well is proposed to be situated. And
So let me ask you a question.
Sure.
If you don't mind. So go back to that slide.
Okay.
So those 4 boxes, so the lease is just on the southern half of this property, the southern portion of the property within Wilson County.
Right, I think it's the same property owner.
But it's the entire property,
Right.
it's the same property. And those four little squares are existing municipal
Well,
supply.
this is an existing well, this is an existing well, this is not, and this is not. I think they're gonna propose wells there. There's also a production well here and about right there.
But those are from a different operator, not Spring Hill.
Yeah, they're from a different operator. Those are from Schertz-Seguin local government.
Okay.
They're a different operator, right, not Springs Hill, no.
How far apart between the proposed well and the existing well? Not the one right above it, but the one.
Okay, from the proposed well to the county line is 6/10 of a mile.
And how far is it to the actual, to the well that's to the north, west, right there?
Well, from the county line to these wells is about 400 feet.
Are you pulling up the same?
It's the same aquifer, excuse me. Good question, I should have said that. They're all producing from the Carrizo aquifer.
Yes, sir.
Pardon me, sorry.
No.
Good question. But they all are producing from the Carrizo aquifer. And we're gonna have slides that show where the Carrizo aquifer outcrops and as it is getting deeper going to the southeast.
Yes.
Right,
Thank you.
right, sure, thank you.
Are those production rates similar?
Well, the production rate for these wells is about 500 gallons a minute. And they have 1, 2, there's 3, 4, so there's 4 of them. I think they're 500 gallons per minute each. And then they're gonna propose 2 more, and so, and I think those will be 500 gallons a minute also. Based on the information from the Guadalupe County Groundwater Conservation District. And so, excuse me, here we're showing the same things again, just it's kind of a reminder of where we are located. And then we'll get into the geology in the area on the next slide. Okay, again, reference to our property. And let's look at the geology and start thinking subsurface now. We have these formations, whoops, yes, we have these formations, the Reclaw, then we have the Carrizo outcrop. For distance reference, from here to there is 4 miles. It's another 4 miles to there, so 8 miles from the location of the proposed well to the northwest edge of the outcrop of the Carrizo aquifer. Excuse me. And then we have the Reclaw, which is not very water productive, the Queen City, and then we have the Weeches and the Sparta and the Cook Mountain. If you're from the Nixon area in the darker soil, that's the Cook Mountain. If you're up in this area, it's much more sand, excuse me. And so these formations are all dipping to the southeast at about 100 to 120 feet per mile. So when it's at the land surface, let's say at this location, by the time you get to here, the formation that was at the land surface there is about 400 to 450 feet below you. And so this northwest edge, 8 miles away, by the time you get to this location, it's about 800, 900 feet below land surface, and that's why they're saying they're going to screen from 700 to 900 because that's the base of the aquifer. So it's all dipping to the southeast. Like I say, if you're from the Nixon area, by the time you get to Nixon, this same aquifer, the Carrizo, is about 1,600 feet deep because it's about 8.5 miles further to the southeast. So it's all inclined that way. All right, thank you. And then if you're a geologist and interested, here's the geologic cross-section showing the Carrizo here, the Wilcox below it, like I said, the Reclaw, the Queen City, the Sparta, and here the geologic ages. But these are more the aquifer here, the Carrizo the most productive, the Wilcox less productive. The Queen City has production, the Sparta also, the Yawa Jackson, but more moderate production there. And then you have some alluvial sediments that are or less productive, but can still produce a well. And if you're interested in a domestic well, you're happy when you can get 20 or 30 gallons a minute as long as the water quality is good. So a little more geology, just showing that this is the shallow part. This is from a model. And also, these illustrations came from a report prepared by Wet Rock Groundwater for the Springs Hill sub. And I want to give them credit for these illustrations. But anyhow, this is representing the top of the Carrizo Aquifer, gradually getting deeper to the southeast. Next slide, which is the base of the aquifer. We took specific electric logs, and we were able to determine the base of the Carrizo Aquifer, and at this location, it's 293 feet below sea level. At this location, it's 440 feet below sea level and 515 feet below sea level there. So then you can graph that, and it shows this dip of about 100 to 120 feet per mile going to the southeast. But I'm just saying the model is reasonably accurate in estimating these depths of the formations. And we just took these electric logs, and there are other electric logs in the area to somewhat verify that. So, and that is, you can contour based on those three data points, and that's what they show. Okay, then we talked about their well, and as it is proposed.
John, let me interrupt.
Sure.
Go back to the, that's not fine, any of those. I just want to reiterate that if you're in the Queen City, if your well is in the Queen City, it doesn't communicate with the Carrizo.
No.
Or if you're in the Carrizo, you can't screen both the Carrizo and the Queen City. So if the water's coming out of the Carrizo, it does not impact the Queen City. So if you're anywhere around that area of Stockdale and you have a Queen City well, the proposed pumpage, is it your assertion that it would not impact the Queen City?
Wouldn't impact that pumping, right.
Right.
Wouldn't impact that. In the same way, with the Wilcox below, there's clays, have electric logs all through this area of oil and gas test holes that have been drilled, and they show a clay layer below the Carrizo in the top part of the Wilcox, and then you get a little deeper in the Wilcox, and there are interbedded sands in the Wilcox. But yes, the Carrizo is pretty isolated in that regard. And we're fortunate. Okay, their production well, as proposed. Again, the static water level at 150 feet. They're proposing the top of the screened interval at about 705 feet with a total depth of about 900 feet with pretty much continuous screen through the Carrizo Aquifer. This is depicting it's gravel packed. It has gravel. It'll be a fine gravel. And the slot size, if you want to think about it, it'll be a stainless steel screen. But the slot size will probably be between 25 thousandths and 35 thousandths of an inch. So it's very small slots. And the gravel is very small. It's almost coarse sand. It'll be a 12 by 20 grade gravel, most likely. Something like that. And then they will have a 22-inch borehole here for the 16-inch casing, so that there's a 3-inch annulus around the casing that is cemented in place. They'll pressure cement with going down the middle of the casing, coming out the end bottom, and then back up all the way to land surface to protect the casing, to seal it from formations above, and add longevity to the casing. Then they will, after the well is constructed, developed, pumped, then they're proposing they would set a turbine pump to some depth, probably maybe 350 feet. That's my guess, initially, depending on the production from the well, productivity of the well. And they're proposing 10-inch pump column, which is pretty standard for a well that's going to produce 1,600 gallons a minute. And also, yeah, we have a depiction of the geology, the Queen City, the Reclaw, and then the Carrizo, and we could slide this down to where the Carrizo is opposite this. But the Carrizo is here, there's sands, but they're not going to be screened in the upper part of the Carrizo aquifer. Okay, here we're looking at wells located in proximity to the proposed well. And we have a table showing these wells in proximity that screen the Carrizo aquifer. Now, there's a few of these wells down here that really do not screen the Carrizo aquifer, and I believe I've got a star by them on one of the successive illustrations here. But we're out here, 1 mile radius. This is required as part of the permit application to locate, identify all the wells within 1 mile of your proposed well that screen the same aquifer. And this is the number that we have, and have a couple of outliers here they provided, and this is an illustration from their submittal. So,
That data center that's gonna suck all that water out?
Let's keep it focused on this, if you don't mind. That's a good question, I'm not disputing that, but that's a projected, and we'll follow up with it. But let's continue on the presentation, please.
it depends if it was in the DFC run or not, and I don't know the answer to that. It may or may not.
Well, I'll address one thing, is we adjust those DFCs
Yeah.
continually. Every 5 years, the process isn't fixed. So as more information comes in, we increase the model, the available inputs, which affect the desired future conditions. So it's not a static across the board. What you see today does not mean it's fixed for perpetuity. So as things like data centers and other demands come to the forefront and the permit applications come in, and we know that's there, then we can add that to the overall model and then adjust our desired future conditions accordingly to meet our needs. So until that is actually in front of the board and in front of the regional planning groups, we have to work with the information we have. But we're very much aware that in the future, things will change, and we have a process in place to modify and adapt to the changing conditions. And I think that's the most important thing.
Is the 5-year process fast enough to keep up with all that's coming? Right.
Well, the 5-year process is actually dictated really too by the state water plan and the regional water planning process. The state updates the state water plan every 5 years. We've just completed the 2026, which would be the 2027 regional water plan. And so we're actually now working on the 2031 water plan. The process is slow to some extent, but it requires an enormous amount of modeling, and we have to model based upon the information we get from the Water Development Board, what we know is coming, and then it has to go through this elaborate public process. The DFC issues, the groundwater management area issues, the long-term projections, that's a meeting in itself. So to proceed with the efficiency of this meeting to some extent, John, we can proceed with your analysis.
Okay, sure. Okay, these are the same wells and that we were talking about in these numbers of 4.7 feet or 6.7 feet, and then further away, at 1 year, 2.3 feet, and then 4.3 feet at 30 years. So this is just a table of what's shown on that map. Then our next slide, let's look at more global picture, a little further away, but remember, here's the outcrop area, where recharge occurs. Here's the location of the well. Stockdale's here about 11 miles away. These are the artesian head declines estimated with the model after 30 years of pumping at 1,000 acre-feet a year, and it's still the 6 feet, 5, 4, 3.5. And by the time you get to Stockdale, it's a little more than 1 foot of artesian head decline. Now realize that Stockdale, the top of the Carrizo aquifer is around 700 feet. It's not 400, 450 feet, it's 700 feet because it's further down dip. And here is, maybe 1.7 feet And here, the top of the aquifer, well, they screen to about 1,600 feet. I think the top of the aquifer is maybe around 1,300 feet in Nixon. So these are small artesian head declines for the pumping, or they're just small artesian head declines when you're talking about 1 foot, 1.5 feet, 2 feet, etc., and then 5 or 6 feet at the well. So this is a good depiction. Okay, here was the slide that I was talking about, the 6 feet, 6.7, sure.
So on your, there's a well that's monitored by the state already, about 3 miles west of this well.
Right.
And it's shown in the last 6 or 7 years to drop about 8 feet already.
Okay, so
I guess my question is, when you're modeling these models, are you using the groundwater or the aquifer? How does that ensure? Like, for example, show the water depth in the ground has dropped 8 feet in 6 years.
well, that should be potentially, I don't know for sure, but in the in the GMA's DFC run, that could be depicted in that. Because that's background pumping the GMA has pumping from the users in the area. I mean, the large users from Guadalupe County, Gonzales County, Wilson County, that's in the GMA run, so that could be depicted in that. Now, this pumping, since it hadn't occurred, it's not represented with that 8 feet of head decline or artesian head decline that occurred in that well.
All right, continue, please.
Okay, well, this is what we were talking about, 4 feet. So this is again 30 years at 1,000 acre feet per year, and this was just trying to depict somewhat, put the numbers on the map in terms, instead of just having them in the table. Okay, now we go a little further and we'll be done. We go to the budgets for these runs, which is something that was in their report, and this is what are the inflows of water, and for this is for remember 1,000 acre feet per year for 30 years, and here was the baseline DFC, like Dr. Brownlow was talking in the background, and this is the Blumberg well added. And then what we're looking for is, where does the water come from over here? Where does it come from as an inflow? And you can see part of it is some leakage from the upper formation, part of it's from the lower formation. A large amount of it comes from storage in the aquifer, and then a little comes from intercepted streams. And we didn't come out exactly to 30,000, but we came close to it with the model simulation. Okay, that's inflows. Now let's look at outflows. And the model calculates for outflow, it's this well. And 1,999.96, it's mathematical. Like your bank gives you a statement, it's to the nearest penny. And so this is the water that was from the well, and again, it shows here, if you can subtract it ins from outs, it's still coming from the storage, which is pretty characteristic of these models, and I've seen models to the east of here, and it's somewhat similar to this. So it's showing inflows versus outflows, and where's the water coming from, and then where did some water go. There was a little water that escaped to the top and a little bit escaped to the bottom. Okay, so that's some of the budgets within a model. And then we go from there to a summary. The applicant provided the production and the transport permit information as required. They had the hydrogeological study. It had the modeling of the 1,000 acre feet per year for 1 year, 10 years, and 30 years of production. It showed the artesian head declines, locally within about 1,600 feet of 6.7 feet. When you got further away a mile, about 4.2 feet. The subsidence screening tool that the Texas Water Development Board uses showed a low risk for subsidence in this area, pumping from this aquifer. And then the modeling results show that the primary source of the water would be from aquifer storage. So those were some of the main takeaways here from this effort. And also, one that's not listed there is, there were a limited number of private wells within the area of this, within the near area. And if you want to summarize this applicant's compliance with the rules, that was it.
All right, I appreciate that, but because we're not going to go into a public hearing, as I mentioned earlier, we're not going to discuss the summary components. However, we've given this presentation, and we'd like to have, open up the floor to those people who have signed up and would like to make public comment. Ken, but before we do that, do we have a list of the number of public comments received prior to five? Okay, I'm sorry. So as you can see on the board here, we had 99 written public comments specific to this application. We had 11 requests for contested case hearings. So all comments are compiled, reviewed, and are part of the application record. So if you submitted it prior to 5 p.m., actually because the permit application is still going forward, there will still be additional time to, if somebody so desires to request an additional contested case to be evaluated from a standing standpoint, if that's available, as well as written comments will be available up until the time we have the public hearing, the official public hearing. So with that said, we're going to open up public comments. Again, that will be recorded and maintained through this process. The first individual I have that is allowed to come up is J.C. Rubitz. Is that how you say it, sir? Rubitz. Mr. Rubitz, can you state your name, your address, and you can begin your public comment.
My name is J.C. Rubitz. I'm from Stockdale, Texas, 1486 County Road 421. I'm the president of the Economic Development Corporation in Stockdale. I have a exempt water well that's on your page, so I think I'm in compliance. But I want to talk a little bit about this issue because we certainly recognize we have a huge asset under our ground, and people from all over the state of Texas are going to make a rush to get at that asset. Conservation is defined as the prevention of wasteful use of a resource. Dr. Brownlow himself told me that from a certain perspective, the job of the Evergreen Underwater Conservation District is to manage the depletion of this asset. And that seems real offensive to me, but then he said, 50 years from now, this offers at the same level, we haven't done our job. And that made sense to me because there are business needs in Wilson County, Frio County, the other counties in your district. There's also going to be explosive residential growth in these areas. And as an economic development manager, so to speak, we care about the future. Economic development isn't a tomorrow thing, it's well into the future. We would prefer that when they talk about cities that have struggled with water supplies, cities like Beeville, Gonzales, Corpus Christi, but we don't want to add Livonia, Floresville, Stockdale, and Nixon. We don't really want to see that. The current application is calling for 1,000 acre feet, 325 million gallons a year. That is 7.5 times more than my family, my church family, my friends in Stockdale use every year. And that, so, when we hear that number and think about what we're using, I think about my kids and the potential for them to drill a well and possibly grow some hay. I don't think any of these models take into account the impairment of our rights. So, sure, I don't have a water well that can produce enough water to grow hay, but I hope to leave my son with the means to do so. Is there a timer? Do I know how much time I have?
2 minutes, 27 seconds.
Because I'm really planning for you. Currently, from this data that we can find, it sounds like Spring Hill provides pumps somewhere around 4 million gallons a day. They have allotted something like 8 million gallons a day. We understand that we're going to be a small part of a portfolio of water assets. But this is a huge part of the portfolio of personal assets that we have. We understand that this is a property right in the state of Texas, and it's been adjudicated at the Supreme Court 6 or 7 times, always in favor of the landowner. So we understand that your job is tough. And there are rules and laws and guidelines and policies that kind of force your hand to a certain degree. But I do think that there's room for the Evergreen to adopt that word conserve a little bit more aggressively in a way that benefits local stakeholders. There's a very important component to permits, and that is, what's the benefit? What is the social benefit of this well? There's none for Wilson County residents. There's none for the stakeholders anywhere inside of your district other than one landowner. And I'm not so sure that the future of our rights and the future of our asset should be so callously shipped off to another county. But we understand that there are property rights that this gentleman or this owner has. So maybe we can approach these permitting processes with a little more rigor,
30 seconds.
like mitigation language with some teeth. Let's make these companies put up bonds or some sort of reserving for that. I would like to see that the monitoring wells for this have reporting requirements that go back to the interested parties like the EDC and the city of Stockdale. And I think I'll just bow out there because I don't have time.
Mr. Rubin, thank you very much. Your comments are received. The next public commenter that is on this list is Doug Patton. Mr. Patton, if you'll come up, state your name, your address, and you can begin your presentation, your public comment, sir.
Can you hear me? My name is Doug Patton, address 1867, County Road 277, Black, Texas. We have property in Karnes County and in Frio County, and Rancho Frio County also. Good morning. My
You
name
said
is
Karnes County?
Karnes. We have land in Karnes County and Frio County. All right, I've got my name. So I am a landowner within the Evergreen district, and we rely directly on the Carrizo Aquifer for domestic and livestock water. Our water supply, our livelihood, and our property values at risk the general public does not experience. EUWCD's mission is to protect the rights of landowners and ensure a sustainable supply of groundwater for future generations using best available science. Approving this permit as written will fulfill that mission. While Spring Hill submitted a I don't know who submitted that hydrogeologic study. That same study confirms long-term aquifer decline and clearly admits it cannot predict conditions at individual well locations. That means the district would be approving this permit knowing it cannot guarantee protection. Would not be approving this permit knowing it cannot guarantee protection for our landowners like ourselves. Based on publicly available population data on Spring Hill's own published rate schedule, a conservative estimate shows that they're already generating well over $1 million per month before this well is even drilled. This permit is not about emergency need, it's about expanding capacity and increasing revenue while landowners here resort to aquifer depletion risk. The Bloomberg Oil Hydro Study projects countywide drawdown of approximately 66 to 68 feet after 30 years, and that is not minor. That is long-term depletion. And the same study admits it cannot accurately predict impacts to individuals with domestic wells. If my well fails, I pay the cost of repair or replace. Spring Hills does not. They profit, developers profit, and landowners here pay the price. Permit prioritizes outside revenue and development over local landowners. It authorizes long-term depletion without targeted protection and without enforceable mitigation. I respectfully ask the board to deny this permit. Anything less on landowners, or anything less for landowners are unacceptable and irreversible risk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, the next public comment is Stephen Mayfield, excuse me.
At this time, I will withdraw my comment for future meetings.
Okay, you're certainly welcome to do that. Thank you. The next comment is Lori Dawn Missouri. If I pronounce it wrong, I'm sorry. My handwriting is far worse than yours. There you go. So, I do the best I can, so I apologize.
You got it right.
All right, so we're going to start now. Announce to present your name and your address.
Good morning. My name is Lori Dawn Missouri. I live at 2010 State Highway 119 in Southdale, Texas. I'm here standing with the people of Wilson County, the people whose wells, homes, farms, and future depend on the decisions made in this room today, or actually in the future when the permit hearing is happening. What I'm about to comment on relates to why the Springs Hill permit could likely be approved. And I heard you, Dr. Brownlow, when you said that a permit is legally required to be given if the organization applying for the permit follows your rules and submits a proper permit. I reviewed your 119-page groundwater management plan, the plan you're voting on today. And here's what your own management plan states: that Evergreen's mission is the conservation, preservation, protection, recharging, and prevention of waste groundwater, based on the best available science. But nowhere in the plan does Evergreen evaluate whether your current rules are actually capable of accomplishing any of that. The plan explains what Evergreen should do, but it never once examines whether your rules actually. And when you compare the goals of the plan to the rules you use every day, is huge. None of that mission is reflected in your rules. Your rules are well spacing, which means almost any permit request will get accepted if it is spaced correctly. But the most important line I saw in the entire management plan appears on page 26 of the PDF. It states that the district may amend the district rules as necessary. That statement gives you the power right now to strengthen the rules so they finally match the responsibilities written in your plan. Because the current rules, the rules you will use to evaluate permits, do not require proof of no harm to neighboring wells, localized drawdown modeling for high volume wells, scientific analysis of impacts on existing wells, mitigation or assistance when families lose water, any requirement that high volume pumping be proven safe before approval to export. I understand Texas law prevents discrimination based on where the water is used, but you can require safety before any permit, export or not. Meaningful limits on large-scale pumping that apply fairly to all users. These are not minor gaps. They are failures of protection. Communities all over South Texas are already living with the consequences of weak groundwater rules. We do not want Wilson County to be next. But there is a solution, and we don't need to change laws or go to the legislature. It's in your hands. Use the authority you have to strengthen Evergreen's rules so they truly protect the people who live here and so that you can actually carry out the mission in your management plan. This is your moment to lead. Your moment to protect Wilson County and the other counties that are involved. Your moment to stand with this community, not with the utilities that want our water. We are ready to work with you, and we are asking you to stand with us starting today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very well said. I appreciate it. All right, the next commenter is John and Scott Aiken. Commissioner, are you giving me the honors? State your name, your address.
Good morning. Good morning, board. Good morning, members of the public. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I live in Stockdale, Texas, Wilson County, Texas, and I would like to read to the board something that has been previously provided to you, a resolution that was passed by the Wilson County Commissioners Court. And it states a resolution in opposition to the exportation of groundwater from Wilson County by the Special Utility District. Whereas we, the Commissioners Court of Wilson County, do have a sworn duty to represent the interests of the people of Wilson County, and whereas Wilson County has both a history steeped in farming and ranching and Wilson County remains a large producer of both crops and livestock, and whereas water is a valuable resource for our citizens, and both access and availability of water is paramount to both current and future generations of Wilson County residents, being able to successfully maintain our homes, our industry, and our agricultural-based businesses. Whereas the Carrizo-Wilcox Aquifer serves as a major aquifer supplying water conservation district and is the targeted source for the requested permit. And whereas the Evergreen Underground Water Conservation District's statement of guiding principles does state the following: Atascosa, Frio, Corns, and Wilson counties rely on water supplies to meet their drinking water, industrial, agricultural, domestic, and livestock needs. Therefore, the local groundwater resources are vital to the area's health, economy, and environment. The district believes this valuable resource can be managed in a reasonable manner through conservation, education, and regulation. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on this 27th day of October 2025, the Wilson County Commissioners Court shall go on record as being opposed to granting of a permit to Springs Hill Special Utility District for the purpose of the transport of groundwater out of the district. And so that was passed unanimously by the court on the 27th. As most people may or may not know, I'll throw it out there, the court of Wilson County is only convened whenever there's an agenda put forth and whenever the court meets underneath the terms of that agenda. So I'm not speaking as a commissioner, I'm talking to you as a resident of Wilson County because I'm not empowered to do so, other than the resolution that I have just read to you. A few things that I've noticed on the information provided, thank you for that. Brought a little clarity and was able to take and reinforce some things that have been of concern to the people who have talked to me, and that is the well that is being proposed seems to be what we used to call in the old patch a placeholder. Okay, they go out and they take and drill wells as far as they can for all the leases that they can get, and then that kind of protects the inner circle of everything that's going on, but it's being done in reverse. They want to take and be able to put a well right on the edge of the district that they serve to try to make sure that they grab water from somewhere else rather than from within the own district that they're in. I know that in the Stockdale meeting where they presented to the public, they have different means of getting water to their company, and they're taking use of it. They approach me, go, let them deal with this on their own. They have access to water in their own area. Those are one of the concerns that comes up, and you know, the show that was up here just now, from when we met in Stockdale and now, whenever Springs Hill was talking, they go, we're estimating 1 to 2 foot drop down at that time in Stockdale. Well, now that was a half mile. We're at 1 mile up here, and the estimation is 4.2 feet at a mile out. So already the numbers seem to be changing as we get more information, and so that's a concern because, as we stated in this meeting, it's fluid, and we're trying to get more information to get the best information. But what we don't want in Wilson County is for this to end up like something. Whenever I was a young man, yes, I was once upon a time. January 1986, you know, people older than me remember whenever Kennedy was assassinated, but I remember when the Space Shuttle Challenger blew up on liftoff. And that was because of a very small problem, O-rings. Wilson County, and I believe the rest of the counties that we have that are protected by Evergreen, don't want it to be a small oversight of something very serious that we end up paying for in the future generations.
Thank you, Commissioner. Comments well received. Appreciate it. Kaylin Kibbe. I said that correct. Ms. Kibbe, please announce your name and your address for the record.
My name is Karen Kibbe.
Karen, I'm so sorry again.
My mailing address is 153 Lake Cubic Circle in Lavernia. However, I really live between no place and no place else. I'm familiar with everything.
You got a lot of names.
One quick question. what my real issue is, as much as I know that they're not gonna actually draw down that much water, because you can't run a well 24/7, 365. Or you will cradle the well and you will ruin your equipment. But nevertheless, oh, I'm sorry, if I got loud enough, now that's pretty amazing.
Can you change that back?
When one looks at what the request is, I had not realized until this morning that actually Springs Hill is going outside of their district in order to drill something. Because the district in Wilson County, the portion, and it's very small, okay, but it's all west of 123, and this well site is substantially east of 123. So it's not even in their district. They want to take that, and it's not like they're pumping water into their district and it's just going to get blended. No, they're taking all of the water that they pump out of the county. Now, what would be the reaction if somebody in Bear County was doing that? The whole reason Evergreen really exists, historically, was to keep Bear County from stealing our water. That's what it was for. So we're setting a precedence that is not a very good precedence here. We need to think about, and I'll admit, it doesn't help protect the Carrizo, but, Gonzales County, Gonzales isn't part of the Evergreen. And so you can just about go over to Gonzales and do what you want to. In fact, that has happened in the past. That's the reason Schertz gets water out of Gonzales County. If we don't veheminously protect what we can, we will wake up without. We just will. And so that's basically what I have to say. And just in case nobody recognizes my name, that's okay because you're all too young. But I worked with water and sewer projects and drilling wells into the Carrizo for small cities and rural counties for years and years and years. I just retired 15 years or so ago. But I could stand here and recite what level people pump at. Just almost every town in the Evergreen and a few outside. Okay, so I do understand water and what it happens. Okay.
Well, thank you very much for your comments, very well received. The next person on the list, the next lottery winner here is Jason Talley with the Floresville Economic Development, Wilson County Economic Development Board. Mr. Talley, if you could state your name for the record and your address, and who you may be representing.
You bet. Thank you, Board. I'm Jason Talley. I'm a resident of Floresville, lifelong resident of Wilson County. I'm the president of Wilson County Economic Development Corporation, and I reside at 433 State Highway 97 West in Floresville. I first became aware of this because of the great efforts by residents in Stockdale, and I do appreciate them getting everybody's attention and making sure that folks are aware of what's going on, with this particular project that's so important, and it's exciting to see the room full. I wish all public meetings were this full. Unfortunately, a few months from now, you won't see anybody sitting in this room, and that's sad in a lot of ways. But I totally get property rights. I'm a landowner. I'm a business owner. I'm a big believer in property rights. I understand as a board you have a very difficult job, and I do appreciate every one of you because I've served on a lot of boards, and I've been in positions like this, and I know how tough it is. You actually lose sleep over things like this, making these kind of decisions. I would just encourage anybody in the room to run for these positions because that's where you can make a real difference as well. Now, from the economic development standpoint, we recently formed the Wilson County Economic Development Corporation. We had one years ago. We've recently reestablished that because the importance of regional economic development in our area. Our approach is to take a regional approach. and to have more collaboration amongst the city entities, Floresville, Stockdale, Post, Livonia. You know, when we grow as a region, it benefits all of us. A win in our region is a win for everybody. What people don't understand right now is the magnitude of inquiries into Wilson and Atascosa and the southern counties that's part of the bigger region around San Antonio. We're getting almost daily inquiries from the San Antonio Greater SATX group that inquires about manufacturing, industrial sites. And so we're sitting on the cutting edge and the verge of seeing a huge explosion in industrial and manufacturing development. So economic development, in my mind, is jobs. The number one goal for our group is to create jobs. Water, power, all those things help do that because they provide the natural resources for those manufacturers to be able to reside and have a footprint in Wilson and Atascosa and the surrounding counties. The goal of jobs is to get economic development to our citizens of the county. And so, you know, that's kind of our goal and that's our passion. But I just want to be sure that everyone understands the magnitude of the inquiries that we're getting from the industrial and manufacturing side of things. Wilson County has a huge opportunity just north of the county. It's called Mission Rail Park. We've got a number of prospects that are looking to position themselves there, of which many of those aren't going to have huge water needs. But the first question I ask when we're meeting with executives of these companies is, what is your water needs? Same thing on a data center. There's a lot of information out there. So much of it is probably misleading. Anytime we have a conversation with a data center, we must be asking the question, is it going to be a closed loop cooling system, or is it going to be a system that uses water every day? Frankly, I would never, ever propose that a data center in Wilson County not operate without a closed loop system. That just simply means you fill the tank one time and you don't have to fill it again with water for about 7 to 10 years. It just recycles the water in that system. A lot of the times people misunderstand that most of these centers have gone to that. I just state that as general information because there are systems out there that don't use that type of system. That being said, we would just ask that you consider not approving the permit from the standpoint of the emergency situation we're in because of this terrible drought. My grandfather said for years, when I would ask him when it's going to rain, and he would say, at the end of this dry spell. The problem is we don't know when the dry spell is going to end. And I would just say that you consider that in your approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Mr. Talley, that's very well said, and this board is very much aware of applications and interest as we sit on the regional water planning group and look at these demands, and it does have an impact on how we move forward with things. So your comments were very well received. Thank you very much. The next commenter is Doug Helsher. Mr. Helsher, state your name, address, serial number.
464. My name is Doug Helsher. I live at 352 of Blue Lake Drive, North Forestville. It's north of Walmart 181. And that's the most phenomenal brief that I could ever imagine. For all of you, I guarantee it, I'm the smallest minnow in the entire ocean. I'm using that as a bit of a metaphor because I'm the most ignorant person here. I spent 30 years gallivanting in the Marine Corps, and if you want to know how to fight a battle, how to win a war, how to envelop the enemy and take them out through any strategic warfare, call me. I'm your guy. When you start talking about water, I turn on the faucet, it works. I understand, I have a well, and I'm a private owner. And I'll tell you, sir, I saw your 11 protests. You got one last night. Why? Because I didn't know about this. I didn't know. If my wife didn't do Facebook, I'd have no clue. I'm here today because I'm genuinely concerned. And based on the phenomenal brief, and I've learned a lot just today, I didn't even know about Queen City. I had to ask the woman next to me, where's Queen City? Clueless. Clueless. Here's what I am gonna say. I don't stand here representing any person. I'm not a lawyer. There's probably lawyers in this room. I'm not an agricultural business person. I just have a private well. But as much as I didn't know about this, last night I did a lot of homework. In fact, I discovered there's a water data pane here. All the orange on this, that's even part of the state of Texas. Loads of them. Loads of wells. Private people just like me. I don't have cattle. I'm not gonna harvest hay on my property. But I'm gonna tell you one thing. My biggest disparity learning here, you announced this morning that you're doing a 50-year plan. And we hear a brief about a 30-year plan. There's disparity number one. Let me go another step. 30 years in the Marine Corps, Operation Alger, 2007, retaking the city of Fallujah. You know what, there's this thing called an unknown. You never know. No matter how many times you test something, there's an unknown. If a CH-46 loses its hydraulic line on the second prop, I promise you, one prop is not going to make that helicopter fly. It's going to go down. That's an unknown. When a stall jams and the enemy's firing at you and you cannot return fire until you clear it, that's an unknown. You can speculate all day here. I'm going to tell you, just 2 days ago, we had rain in the forecast. And call it. I didn't get a speck of rain except what came out of my water faucet. So when we're going to talk about unknowns, we have unknowns. Despite the disparity on the 30 to 50, and I'm not going to challenge that, great slide, I've learned a lot here today, but I can ask this, and this is probably outside of your realm. Is there a potential for a conditional permit? You authorize it, they sign a legal binding contract, and if the aquifer affects so many wells and drops down to a certain level, they shut down this pump. I don't know if you can do that. I'm not a lawyer. Maybe a lawyer's going to tell you that. I'm just a simple man trying to make it a complex world, and it concerns me because I don't have $1 million farm trying to work on a retirement here. I've got $135,000 of my personal money that my will is supporting, and at the end of the day, if I lose that, who's going to compensate me? And I get a military retirement. Who's going to compensate the farmer? Who's going to compensate him? I don't think it should be Evergreen. So at the end of the day, if they're going to make money off of this, why don't they just, I don't know, go to the Gulf of Mexico. There's a lot of water there. Gulf of America. Thank you. Thank you. Gulf, no offense, anybody? Or go pump water in the county in which you intend to use the water. So, and again, I don't represent anyone except just another small-time person, and here I am to speak on behalf of, you know, there's 6,000 plus active wells. That means there's 6,000 people, and if their wives don't do Facebook, you're missing 5,900 people because there's only about 100 here. I speak for them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And thank you, board, for allowing me to come here and be in forum. And I say just something to consider.
No, you make very good points, Mr. Helser. Thank you again for your comments. I will say with regards to the 50-year planning, as a presiding officer here, I get the leverage to ability to make these comments. But the 50-year planning is done on a 5-year cycle, so it's a constantly evolving plan. So we know that 50 years from now, that's not what it's going to be like. It's adjusted every 5 years, and that process is intense. And that process of adjusting the 50-year plan on 5-year increments, I mean, we're always, but we recognize by doing it on a 5-year interval, we're able to change and adapt and include things and modify. And so this board and the region utilizes the 50-year planning process, again, as a long-term plan, but we have to consider the short-term variables. And that's how we're able to adjust our rules when we see increases in usage, when we see increased demand, when we increases in water level drop. We have the ability to amend our rules based upon these changes. And so it's not a static, whatever happens. With regard to the mitigation aspects, the elements that you talked about in our proposal, and one of the reasons this has not happened, we did not have a public hearing today, is related to a mitigation agreement. It's that. So I'll leave it at that, but thank you very much again for your very, very well.
If I may, one more comment, sir, because I know my 5 minutes is done.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
5 minutes is up.
Okay, then, thank you very much.
You're welcome. And we're available, all of us available after this meeting, probably around 5 o'clock.
I've got to go back to work.
Just kidding. Okay, that was Doug Hilscher. He'll be back next week. Tammy Manning.
If you make comments today, you can make them at the next meeting.
You can come to our monthly meeting every month. You can make every comment to which there's ample opportunity. If you want to make comments today, do that. If you want to make a comment when we have the public hearing, reschedule public hearing, you're welcome to do that.
I'm very similar to Mr. Hilscher. My name is Tammy Manning. I live at 141 Lodge in Athens, Texas. I have a military background. In fact, that's why I left Wilson County, but came back recently in 4 years. And I can tell you, in the time that I was gone since 1998, coming back 4 years ago, this is not the same Wilson County. This is not the same rural area that we are living in. This is a moment in time that we must realize is so important to our families, to our heritage, and to our future. I don't have a planned speech. I came here to become informed, to listen, to hear the information, to understand better. I'm fairly glad this is postponed because I'm going to talk to everybody and say, talk to your family, talk to your friends, talk to everybody you know, and let them know how important this is. Other counties, other districts, other cities are watching. They are seeing this, they are paying attention to this decision and the future. My understanding is, how many permits are there out there for transportation? I have no idea. I found it very alarming that there have been very few. This one seems very large. Why now? Why did the Spring Hills Water Corporation suddenly change to utility just last fall? Why did that happen? Why did they promise people that it was going to allow them to bring in more water sources that they didn't have? Why did Sabine take over part of their area? Because they weren't managing it well. Why do they have businesses waiting on them to approve their water permits? What is happening and why is it happening? We need to do research. We need to find out. We need to understand these things that are happening around us. I didn't know this either, and I have to thank Miss Lori. She's also, I grew up in Denhocken. You talk about nowhere. That is nowhere. But that is so close to where this is happening. People don't even understand the magnitude, like I believe that was from the Floresville Economic, right? All these applications that are coming in, data centers, solar farms. What is the long-term impact of those? Not just our business and opportunities and jobs, what is the impact to our ecology? What is going to happen to our land when they clear 1,500 acres of trees to put in solar panels? We have to think about these things for ourselves, for our kids, and our future. Thank you.
Ms. Manning, very passionate, very appreciative. We appreciate it. The last person I have on the sheet is Mr. Warren B. Stevens. Mr. Stevens, please, your name and for the record.
Warren Stevens, 2378 County Road 438, Stockdale, Texas. We're actually in Nakano. Funny name. That's what we're at.
You're not what?
Nakano is actually, yeah. When you saw on the map for So I'm probably gonna make some of my free. But those 2 wells that are drilled in Guadalupe County are probably maybe 2 miles from us. This new well is probably gonna be about a mile. And then apparently the other 2 wells in Guadalupe County are only gonna be about 3 miles from us. That being said, I was invited by Stephanie and my neighbors to speak. And the reality for me is, if y'all don't approve this well, they're just gonna go to Gonzales County. They're just gonna go to Gonzales County. And where we're at, apparently for some reason, I don't know if the sand is just easier to drill in where they're drilling or what's right. They're very active in that area. So the reality is, more than likely, eventually, litigation, mitigation, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to be looking at another well very closely. We just registered with y'all last week, so we're not on the board. Our well is 500 feet deep, which is pretty much deeper than most domestic wells in the area. Drilled in 2013, Stephanie's numbers said that we were in water at 80 feet. We measured it the other day with the laser. We're 90 feet down. So, I don't know where we're getting our numbers from, that it's only going to be 6 feet lower in 80 years or whatever it is. But I'm having a little problem. So, I'm looking at, we're probably going to be drying up in 80 years. There's nothing your board can do about it. This is just a problem with success. And I'm a realist. This is what's going to happen. From what it looks like on y'all's board approvals, I'll have plenty of hay, maybe, to feed my cows. Maybe even plenty of grass. But I might not be able to have any more. So, I don't know what y'all can do about it. I know y'all are trying to do what y'all can do about it. But the reality is, they're obviously just going to go right next door in this particular location because we have 3 counties. And I don't know, y'all don't, we don't, this district doesn't go into those counties. But once we ship our water to the other counties, they become dependent on our water source. And they're going to be our dependents, and we're not going to be able to deny them when they come back to us for more water. And that's really scary for us. So, I'm not asking y'all to stop it. I'm just asking y'all maybe to mitigate it to the point where the reality is my reality of 90 feet. So, I don't know what y'all think.
Thank you very much. Let me continue, please. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. You brought up a good point, and I want to thank you very much for registering your well. We have thousands and thousands of wells across this district that are not registered. We have permittees that are not willing to even submit their usage, to file their usage. It's a constant battle of enforcement, and we have very strong enforcement rules. We have the power of law. We have the power of fines that people don't enforce. But that's complicated and a process because, you know, that's taking us to another level. So we're doing everything we can to communicate to the public about the challenges that the district has in data collection and information. Most people don't want to register their wells. They're afraid we're going to regulate them or government intrusion. They're going to get taxed. You know, oh my God, if they know where my well is, or if they do this or that, we're going to tax them, and I don't want them on it. Our staff goes out in the field every day, and in very difficult circumstances. People closing the gates on them, being rude, you know, looking at them like they're members of the IRS. You know, we're not that at all. We're trying to do the best we can. If you have a well, if your neighbor has a well, ask them to register so that we can understand if we can include it in our database. If you have a well that's not utilized, let us include it in our monitoring well program. It'll help us with that data. It'll help us address the very issues Ms. Manning spoke to a while ago. It's how do we get the information? What are we doing? All of those factors are important. 75, at one time, 2 years ago, 75% of people that had a permit from this district that were required to submit their production permit, productions on an annual basis, weren't willing to do it. Weren't willing to do it. Our estimates of water usage were coming from agricultural data through the Texas Water Development Board. Through our enforcement actions and our staff and Aaron's leadership, we've grown that participation in annual reporting, which is a fundamental requirement to around 70% or so, 75% now, in the course of about 2 years of very strong advocacy to do this. This is not, the board has a responsibility to make those final decisions and oversee those rules, but it is the input and it's the public participation at the end of the day. It's the landowners, it's the well owners, it's the people that use that water that influence our modeling, that influence our data collection, that influence our decision. So, with that said, there's nobody else signed up on this list. Again, this is a public comment period. We thank everyone for sitting through this as long as it's been. It's been over 2 hours, almost 2.5 hours. The dedication that you've provided to us, the support by coming here and being part of this process is fundamental. We appreciate it greatly, more than you probably realize, because we haven't had this many people collectively in a board meeting in 3 years. You know, rarely does anybody send to these meetings because they don't really know about it. Well, you guys know about it. Let's start something. Let's begin something. From Wilson, Karnes, Astos, and Frio County, this is fundamentally important. Don't think for a second this board doesn't recognize how fundamentally important it is. That's why every one of those board members got on this board to participate in the process, to contribute, to try to make it better. You know, so every comment that was made today, every comment that's been received, will follow through the process, and we will be letting the public know when we have finalized a new hearing for the application. Rest assured that we'll follow through with all of you that have provided contact information. A couple other things is, we do have requests for a contested case hearing, multiple requests for contested case hearing. By our rules, we have to go that route. We can't make a decision without going through a hearing at the appropriate time. So all of those things are in the future for us. Again, thank you all. We are going to reconvene to our regular meeting. I would love all of you to stick around, listen to the bills that are paid, and all of these other agenda items. But we're going to take a break now before we go into it. You're welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, probably an hour worth.